Welcome to the Awaken Your Ego podcast, where we embark on a transformative journey towards unleashing your highest potential. I'm your host, Joanne, and I'm thrilled to guide you through discussions that delve into the realms of physical, mental, and spiritual wellness.
Brenna here. Join us as we unravel the mysteries of wellness, offering insights and practical tips to enhance your overall health. From rejuvenating your body to nurturing your mind and spirit, our conversations will cover a holistic approach to well-being.
I'm one of your hosts, Ariana. Discover alternative health strategies aimed at optimizing every aspect of your life. If you're ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery and well-being, tune in, open your mind, and let's awaken your ego together. Welcome to a life-changing adventure on the Awaken Your Ego podcast.
Today we're talking about intimacy.
Talk about all the girly things that we don't usually talk about, but we feel comfortable talking about because this is girl talk.
For sure.
Well, and honestly, I hate that sex is so taboo of a topic, or intimacy or sensuality. I feel like it's so censored, but it's such a vital piece of a person, like your overall wellness and well-being. That's in the equation there. So I don't know why it's such a weird thing for people to just talk about.
Well, I think even talking about it in like a health and wellness standpoint is different, and how intimacy, like your relationships and community and even your sexual health, is a really vital part of your health. I think that is what we that's why I feel comfortable talking about. We talk about it all the time. I think even when we see our patients for hormone replacement therapy, that's like one of the questions they're asking, like, how's your sex life?
Mm-hmm. How's your libido? Yeah, do you have the desire?
So I think that's cool.
We're bringing awareness. That's what we're doing. Yes.
So I guess, we'll just get started, but how do you guys feel like you create intimacy in your relationships?
For me, it's probably more of like a playful thing. I mean, obviously my love language is acts of service, but I feel like I'm a little touched too. So I have all these aches and pains, and one thing that I love that my partner does is he always will massage all those areas. And it might seem like, oh, okay, you're getting a massage, but it's like, no, it's like, it's an affection, It's like, hey, you're doing this. Service. Yeah, it is very much. It's like that affection that is for me. It's totally, he doesn't ask me to do it back. I will, but I just feel like, hey, this is a way that we can connect physically. And then from there it can lead into other things.
Well, and I think it's like the act of service, right? But I think too, even because obviously in my relationship, back rubs have become very important for our sex life. But I also think it's like, when like getting attuned to your body, I think as a woman too, it's like once you can kind of feel that it's going in a different direction.
Oh yeah.
I think there is something about having that like attunement to your body and like listening to it that is, I think, attractive.
Oh yeah.
And kind of get you in the mood. And
I think as women too, we're constantly on the go, managing work, life, kids, all the other things that we carry all that stress and tension. So it's kind of like if you can help me relax, like help me help you. In a sense,
help me
help you.
Well, and as I think women are very nurturing, loving beings, and I feel like naturally very sexual and in tune with their sexuality. I feel like society and beliefs kind of get you out of alignment with that, or want to ignore that, or maybe religion at one point made you want to deny that part of yourself. Oh, yeah. But it's just owning that service that you are receiving, or those smiles, or that playfulness, or whatever turns you on or gets you in relaxed and in that mode. It's like women will return that tenfold. Oh, yeah. Like you give me a little breadcrumb, I will give you the whole loaf. Like it's just, it's kind of how we're wired almost. Yeah. But we do require a little bit if we're going to truly be able to give.
And I think effort has a lot to do with it too. Because there's something about like, okay, I'm massaging you. And then like really putting effort into it too. Into it. Yeah, because it's like, don't just half-ass this. Like,
I know the difference. I know the difference.
Put some effort in there. But I think I'm a sensual person in a sense is, I really do like the touch, even the little soft caressing, so I think for me, it's allowing me to tap into my feminine energy. It's like, touch me a little, and the playful things too, like I'll smack the booty or, like smack his chest, I will walk by and he does it back to me. So it's not always like serious. It's playful too.
But I think there's one point in my marriage where we were young, like things were hard and it's stressful, and it's like that kind of cuts off. I guess, can you guys explain a little bit at like points in your life where you feel like you kind of protected that part of yourself or didn't allow that part of yourself and maybe disconnected a little bit?
Well, I think for sure having kids, nothing kills your libido more. I think for sure, like having small children, I think because it's just so, for me, like even just having a newborn on your chest all day, it's like one of the things I miss the most, but it also is like being so touched out by the end of the day. Like I don't want anyone near me or to touch me. And so I think it's really hard for me to like allow that physicalness between my husband and I when I had small children, because I'm like, I've already given so much of my body all day long.
Your energy.
My energy, like I can't give. And I think it really is like, I felt like I was sharing my body with so many people. And maybe that's like I was disconnected from it. But I think it was hard for me to allow even just that sexual energy to thrive because I was so touched out by that. I didn't want anyone touching me. I didn't want to touch me. I had zero interest. So I think that was a time that was really difficult. How we navigated that, I think my husband really had to, one, just not get offended and like a lot of compassion of like, and patience that this is just the season that we're in. And I do think even like the acts of service, I think that was really a way of like, I'm taking care of these kids all day. I mean, obviously I was a working mom too, so it's not like I was taking care of them all day, all the time, but it was like understanding that like you need to serve me because I'm
depleted.
Yeah, I'm depleted.
Fill my cup so I could fill yours.
And I feel like once he understood that and really like, then we were able to thrive more. It's like that level of service to me, so that way I could give it back to him. But I think that was the time that was hard for me.
Well, and you have to be in tune with yourself enough to know like mama's depleted instead of like, what's wrong with me? I think a lot of us are like, what's wrong with me? And so I think for me, I was a fierce mama bear. I wanted to do it all, everything. It was hard for me to rely on my partner, or when I let my partner help, it was like, I got it. I wanted to feel like I had every aspect of motherhood, which for what? Like, I'm not going to get a trophy. I just was very depleted. But I think I had to finally come to a point where I'm like, this sucks. Like, I'm so tired. I don't feel like myself. I feel like a robot. I just have to keep going. And once I was able to kind of share the load and be like, hey, if you have the dishes done and the living room cleaned up by the time I get home, I can focus on you after working, super long hours. And then I feel like at first it felt almost like an assignment. But I made it like that because I wasn't allowing his help. But once I gave him kind of that assignment of like, hey, here's a way to take some off my plate, and he rose to the occasion, it made me appreciate him so much more. It gave me that downtime at night to just be able to be a person, not like a robot cleaning up frantically before it's time to like crash and fall asleep.
Well, and I think a lot of it is taking care of yourself first.
100%.
And I think that's the part that's really hard when you have young children to do, right? Because it's just a hard balance.
Because they need you. They need you to survive.
Right? When they need you. It's not like you can be like, come back in 30 minutes. I'm trying to get my sleep in. It's like, no, they're like, they need it. So I think that is just hard to navigate. But it is like once you take care of yourself, whether it is asking for help or like saying, these are my needs, please help me in whatever direction, I think then you're able to be a little bit more in tune and have space for that intimacy.
To even develop.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have been in a little bit of a block lately. The puppy love stage of our relationship was great, and then we move in, and then I got on birth control. I am not an advocate for birth control. I'm actually going to go on a rant on it, but I feel like just the shifts in my hormones was just like, oh man, like the constant estrogen dominance, leading to a little bit of weight gain, to where then I'm like, ew, I feel like I'm bloated all the time. Like, I'm not feeling myself. So even when you're trying to fill in me, I'm not going to believe it. Yeah. So, I went on all this like researching birth control and realized like, oh my gosh, like it depletes my B complex, because I guess in order to absorb the birth control, your liver requires B complex, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium to even like absorb it. So then I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this to my body willingly. And so it's kind of like I've been in this situation where I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to have a baby, but I don't like feeling this way. So it's just kind of like, it affected me in a sense of like, I don't feel attracted. When I was single and not had to worry about this, I was all over like, I feel good, I'm working out and all that. But just like, oh my God, like just that in its own affected me. And so I feel like with my partner, like he's had to really like coax me through it, like recommending I take DIM or, estrogen balancing supplements and things.
Do you do estrogen?
I ordered it.
That's great.
Considering PT 141, because I'm like, hey, maybe this
I
is
love
the time
PT 141.
I know. PT 141 I think is just a really great peptide for women,
It's like
especially.
a game changer.
For me, it's more, I wouldn't say, I think it makes me actually just more loving towards my family. So I think in that way, obviously like more loving towards my husband, but I find myself more like even just grateful for my kids and just I feel like I want to hug them more. So I think in general I feel like a more loving person when I'm on PT 141, and obviously the tanning is a great
Boost that tan.
So I think that's a great one to kind of help with libido. But birth control I feel like makes a huge difference on your libido. And
And it's you saying that. I think a lot of people don't realize how it affects the mental aspect of
for
you.
sure.
Like obviously your hormones are being messed with, and so that it just affects a lot. And so I think men, not all men, but some think like, oh yeah, just go on birth control. That's easy. You just take care of it. And it's like, it kind of takes two, to tango. So we should both be aware of how to prevent.
And I'm very grateful that my boyfriend is understanding and, he's with me on this because he even said, well, you don't have to be on it. Like we can find other routes, but it's me. It's like, no, I will willingly put myself through this.
Like I want to be sure.
It's fine. But yeah, it's like, all women that are on birth control, you're not crazy. It is a hormonal imbalance. And, there are ways to work through it. Like I said, just encouraging more of the B complex. I ordered that. More magnesium. Like
that's awesome.
All these deficiencies. It did make me a little bit more anxious and stuff, but I feel like when you have an awareness, it helps you kind of understand how to navigate through it. But that's kind of like my funk right now. But
I love that. And I'm a huge advocate of supplementing. Like I feel like at Ego Wellness, we have so many like different ways to kind of get tested, labs, even urine screenings, like ways to see where you're at with different levels and depending on what you're looking at. Because even you saying like magnesium, B12, estrogen, I'm like, I've been taking all those things. I'm not on birth control, but I'm already deficient and it affects my overall well-being.
Oh, yeah.
So those things, it's a simple supplement can kind of change energy level, how you feel, happiness level. It's like, it's crazy how big of a difference it makes. And PT 141, I love how not only it affects your neurological, like it makes you feel more lovey-dovey, it makes you feel more happy almost, but also the physiological effects are fantastic. Like Brenna mentioned, like increased tanning ability, that's really real. But also like increased blood flow, increased sensitivity, increased
like more powerful
moisture.
orgasms.
Yeah, it's like it really does have this crazy effect, and it just makes sex feel better, like for men and women. But I think it's a little secret that a lot of women need to like know about.
Yeah.
Well, and on the subject of birth control, because after my second, I was like, gotta get on birth control ASAP. And my OB was like, yeah, we can put it in an IUD.
Wait, little history. Brenna's kids are only how far apart?
17 months.
Exactly. So she's like, we can't do this again.
I was eager. But he was like, yeah, let's get an IUD. Because I was like, it's going to be a few years before I'm ready. And I got the IUD, but I was still breastfeeding. It was at my 6-week appointment. And it actually punctured through my uterus. So so when I went back to see if it was placed right, they're like, oh yeah, it went through your uterus. We need to get it surgically removed. And I felt crazy. Like I was like, where are my hormones going? What's going on? Which it probably wasn't, but
it was scary.
Yeah. It was just, like one of those things, like a foreign object in your body, and then having to get actual surgery to get it removed was so frustrating. And so now I've just been on the cycle, tracking my cycle, and I feel much better about it. One, because I feel like I'm way more in tune with where I am in my cycle, And it is funny. It's like every single month I've noticed when I am like start to feel frustrated with my husband, it is 8 days until my period. Every time I look at the app, I'm like, okay, it's me.
You're like, I don't want to get a divorce yet. It's just my hormones.
He's not a terrible person. It's me. No, but it is like kind of funny. But he also tracks my period too. Cause I was like,
yeah, that's good.
Okay, if I'm not going to be on birth control, I need you to be with me on this. Like we need to be on the same page because we both don't want to have a baby right now.
So how do you guys navigate that? Like, what does it mean when you're ovulating? Is that like, oh, he needs to get things ready and like bag up, or like, what does that mean?
Well, he knows that he has the app on his phone, so he tracks my period with me, and so yes, it's like, oh, are you? And I use the Flow app, so it really is like I think it's like 7 or 8 days that which technically I think you only ovulate for like 3 to 5 days, but it like gives you like 7 days because
like
sperm can live in the whatever for however many hours, like 72 hours I think. So it's a pretty like long time period. So we just kind of pull out, which is a
little scary.
But I mean, we're a lot more careful during that week or whatever. So it's worked so far. Actually, it's worked really well, and I really love just tracking my period. It gives me a lot of insight.
Well, I like how you said it links your weird symptoms to like where you're at and hormonally. Like, oh, I have a migraine. Oh, wow, that makes sense because I'm at this time in my period or whatever it is. I mean, that's a cool tool.
And I know like when I'm switching from like a different phase to another phase, because sometimes they'll have like throughout the month I've noticed I'll have like one day of just like really high anxiety, like I can feel it in my body, not necessarily situational, to where I'll look at the app and I'm like, oh, I just switched, I think it's the hormone shift. So I like it for how it's like informed me in my health. And then also with my husband, it's like we're both kind of on the same page of like as to what's going on. When I'm PMS and I'm actually going crazy, we're all just we kind of just
tread lightly.
we know what's going on here. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm a little short. We know what this is. It's okay.
Well, and it gives your husband an opportunity to not personalize it. Like, oh, mama's going through it. I just got to hang on for a few days. Like, I get that piece too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
See, we tried that, but we kept having oopses. So I was like, you know what?
This isn't our method.
Pull out was not working. Like, let's just go on the birth control. So
what is pulling out? I don't know. I don't have ovaries, so I guess I could say that. Or not. I don't have fallopian tubes. I had mine after mine. Second, waited a few years and got them removed because I was very anxious to get off of birth control, and I had the IUD. For some reason, I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I just need to take care of this so it's off my mind. So yeah, sorry, I haven't had that struggle for a while.
Must be nice. See, I'm willing
just not fertile.
to have one more child. Not right now, but in a year or two. And then same. I'm like, just take the tubes, take the uterus, take it all. I don't want it.
Take it all.
Like, I'm done with it. Thank you.
I'm not ready to close the door yet. I don't think I'm gonna have more children, but I still am not. I'm not ready to be like, I'm done.
Well, it's one of those things, until you're sure. For me, it was like I was kind of pushing my husband, like, oh, go get a vasectomy. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's in and out procedure. And I tried making him an appointment. They wouldn't let me. They're like, you're not allowed to. Your husband has to call. I'm like, okay, this is so annoying. So after a couple, and I tried a couple offices.
Blink twice if you're scared.
I'm like, if I call back in a lower voice, can I make this appointment? But after a few months, I was like, forget it. I'm sick of waiting. I feel anxious about it. I'm just going to go in and do it, on my own. And I was grateful to do it. It got done. But
do you feel like you had any hormonal changes or no?
No, not from the tubal removal.
Was it pretty easy recovery?
Actually, it was more intense than I thought. It is a day procedure, but since it's laparoscopic or whatever, they like have to put air into your gut to like expand. So that was actually very uncomfortable. I didn't expect it to be any kind of recovery, really. And then it was for a couple weeks, I kept getting those like air bubble pains randomly when the air gets caught in your body. So I thought that was actually like really annoying, and it was more intense of a recovery than I anticipated.
Got it.
But I think I underplay most things. Like, this will be a breeze. I got it. It's fine.
It's just surgery and anesthesia, not a big deal.
Exactly. They're removing things from my body, like whatever.
And then I had an IUD stuck in there, and I'm like, oh my god, my world is falling down. Like, it really was like a simple procedure, but it was really stressful.
But I think it is realizing like everyone has what works for them and no judgment. It really, I feel like we all have to do what feels right for us and our situation. And there's a lot of different paths that you can take for that.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you've kept intimacy alive in your relationship after being together for a long time? What do you feel like has worked for you?
I think, and it sounds weird, but like working with the consciousness coach, Lisette, like at Ego, I feel like she's helped me kind of adjust my mindset to where I can correlate things correctly. I think for a long time I was just unhappy with my situation, wasn't a great communicator. I would just withhold and like, I just got to keep doing more and more while I was building this intense resentment for my spouse. And I didn't even know, it was very subconscious. It was like I was waiting for him to make me happy. And since he was working a lot, we had a kid with a heart defect and a lot of bills to pay. It was like, oh, no one's here to make me happy. Like, what? I guess I'm not supposed to be happy. It's like I had a weird belief in my mind that your spouse is supposed to make you happy.
Yeah.
Not that I could make myself happy and be happy and content with where I'm at. So I feel like I really had to dive in and adjust some of my default wiring that I kind of witnessed as a child and throughout life, and what I thought relationships should look like and what they should be. And I feel like once I was more aware of what I was feeling, and once I felt more empowered that I can voice my needs, I can voice what I want. I think growing up as a kid, I didn't feel like I was heard or my needs were heard. And so therefore I stopped saying them. It's like, oh, I got to get myself what I want.
Yeah, like you're responsible.
But when it takes two to have a relationship and raise kids and be a partner, it's just, I was left wanting all the time. And I got sick of being disgruntled. I got sick of being disappointed. I got sick of that negative feeling when I wanted a happy, loving, peaceful home. Yet I wasn't able to feel it and have it. So I think it was rewiring kind of how I viewed relationships and feeling more empowered to communicate my needs and feeling allowed to share my needs and trusting that my spouse is going to respect that and want to help me to like get that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's really helped. But remembering why we got together in the first place. It's like I was reading some old journals the other day and it was like, gosh, I really loved this guy. Like, holy cow, he was my world. Like, he was everything to me. Every entry was something like, I miss him. I want him. Where is he? Like, we were broken up for a period of time before we got married. And so I think it's like being able to take that moment and be like, no, he loves me. That's something I can trust. I love him. That's something I can trust. And not taking the little everyday stresses like personal or like an offense, if that makes sense. So we've had to rebuild kind of our friendship and our connection multiple times throughout our relationship, and taking that pause to be like, what am I actually looking for? And what are you looking for? And where do we meet? Like, how can we give that to each other? And I think that's also very empowering of like, hey, I have control of this. I'm not just stuck in a situation. It's like, if I want a more playful relationship, what am I doing to bring that to fruition? Mm-hmm. And if we both agree, like, hey, we want to laugh together and enjoy, are we creating that environment? Like, am I being playful? Am I being thoughtful? Am I being loving?
Yeah.
Is he doing the same? It's like getting each other on the same page for what we want instead of waiting for them to read your mind, which is like impossible.
Yeah. And I feel like for us too, it's like when our relationship gets out of balance, whether one of us is working too much or one of us isn't home as much and like kind of forgetting the things at home, I think we both will end up in this cycle of like overworking. And so then whether it's him or me, but there's been times where I'm like, hey, like this isn't sustainable really for our family. Maybe if you were like a single person on your own, you could work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, no problem. But like, this isn't sustainable for you or our family. And I actually don't think you're being the dad you really want to be. Like, cause when you come home, you're so tired, you're so this.
You can't be present.
You can't be present. And I've been in that scenario too, where I have anxiety about whatever. So I'm working so much and then he's kind of holding it down at home. And so I think that builds up resentment in the background when one of us is kind of not present at home and we're not able to kind of create that space for each other because one of us is like too tired and exhausted. I think that really, it's like trusting that we both have each other's like on top. Yes, have our back and that like we're top of mind. Even just like sending that playful text throughout the day, like, oh, I miss you so much, or whatever it is.
Well, and doesn't that make you feel so loved when your man can be like, hey, babe, you're kind of getting too far out of balance, like, come on back. Mm-hmm. I think when Cody would try to do that to me in the past, I was like, okay, F off. Like, don't disrupt my freedom. Like, go away. Like, you just want more time for you to work. Or I personalized it.
Yeah.
And now when he says that, I'm like, okay, I can respect that and trust that you have my best interest in mind. Like, you're right. I need to rebalance things, reprioritize things. And it makes me feel really loved. It's like, oh, you're seeing something about me I'm not even noticing.
Yeah.
You're seeing that, you know that this is not what I want. And thank you for reminding me. I feel like that's a good partner, being able to call each other out and receive that feedback without any other feelings
It's kind of like
behind
being
it.
that tether of like, hey, this is what's most important to us is our family, our relationships, not all of these other things that we can prioritize all the time, and keeping each other a priority. Because I think it's really easy to let that slide when you've been together a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Because I really trust my husband completely. Like, and if he wants to work a lot of hours, I'm like, yeah, like I'll support you. If that's your dream, that's what you, like, whatever
That's what you feel like you have to do.
I got your back. But I think it's more of like, and I've been like, but you need to be present at home on some level. Like, I don't care if you get home late, but when you come home, I want you available, like on some level.
You're gonna tap in a little bit.
Tap in here or there. Or it's like when I can hold it down for a period of time, but when I'm struggling, hey, you need to be a little more present. Like, I don't got it. But I have to be in tune with myself to know when I don't got it. Because I think my cycle will be like, I got this. When I'm being like a crazy person to everyone, I'm just being mean. I'm not being the mom I want to be.
And you're taking on more and more and more, actually.
More, and then I'm just like this raging bitch, and it's like, for why?
Yeah. I think communication is really important. I think we have a hard time admitting like we need help.
Yes.
Or we're not okay. But I think just the ability to say it out of a genuine, space of like, hey, I'm not okay. Like, me and my boyfriend have been together for 6 months, so not anything near your guys' track history. But, I really appreciate the communication that we have. I mean, he's a physician. He sees so many patients a day. And one day, we just were at home. We were getting ready for the gym. And he just said, like, can we just talk? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I'm not okay. He's like, I am carrying all this stress from work and all these things. And he was just like, let it out. And I was just like, oh shit. Like, I feel like, in relationships, sometimes we have this expectation of our partner, like, oh, he's got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he can handle it. But when they tell you, like, I'm not okay, it's like that oh shit moment. Like, okay, I need to be here.
Like, here's
and
my
it's not even that I
opportunity.
said anything. I just listened.
Yeah.
And he just let it out. And I was just present with him, listening to him. He kind of was just talking to himself and kind of like looped his own findings.
Like, he was like figuring it out.
Yeah.
As he was talking.
But I think he just wanted me there.
The sounding board.
Yeah. So it's like not necessarily like, oh, you have to fix their problems. Because vice versa for women, when we want to express that, I feel like men always want to fix our problems.
Yeah.
Where if I open up to him, he's constantly trying to fix it. And I'm like, don't give me a solution, just listen.
Yeah.
Like I do for you.
Well, and I think it's important, like you said, like to verbalize that even in the beginning, because I'm someone that's more masculine. I'm the one that's like trying to fix everything he's saying while he's saying it. And I have to catch myself because that's not what he's looking for. But for me, asking for help is really hard. Like my body has this intense resistance, like, I don't want to let this slip out of your lips. It's like I judge myself instantly when I feel vulnerable or have a need. And so I have to like challenge myself to be able to say like, hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I know I'm usually the one that I feel like I'm holding it down, or I feel like I'm the stable one, whatever mindset I have about me. But giving myself that grace to not be okay sometimes, because we're humans, we're not robots. Like we're allowed to like have a vulnerable moment and lean on our partner. And I think I realized like I withheld that opportunity from my partner for a very long time. Like I didn't lean on him for anything. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to give him one more thing to even worry about. But I had to realize like, wow, this is a self-worth issue. Like, Ariana, you're worth someone's time. Like, so he wants to love me. And I was just withholding that and not allowing it. And then yet I was still wanting of like, where's my spouse? Why don't I have a man that wants to be there for me? And I'm like, I'm creating this weird effed up cycle just because I'm not letting my needs like flow.
Well, and I feel like recently I've been trying to be a little more aware of like communicating through vulnerability, not communicating through like frustration, resentment. And like resentment is a big feeling for me of when I know like, girl, you're not okay. Like you need to ask for help once I start building resentment. So to me, that's always like my little red flag. But it's like, and then I want to communicate with like, well, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And then I'm like, oh.
You want to give him a to-do list.
That's not what we need. What we need to communicate is I need help. Mama's not okay. Like, and if I communicate through vulnerability, like he's like, oh my gosh, like he's like way more willing to support me and love me and give me
That's
that
huge.
versus when I'm like, you're not doing this, you're not home enough, you're not blah blah
Like
blah.
pointing the finger.
Pointing the finger, when in reality it's like what I'm trying to communicate is like I need help.
Yeah.
And so I think communicating through vulnerability is one, a way to create more intimacy within your relationships.
100%.
You build trust, and like even like, because if someone comes to you like you said, like, hey, I'm not okay, and you're like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? You have more care and concern versus like you're not doing enough.
It's true.
Exactly.
Well,
It's a
and I think
different
it's
message.
communicating early, like when you have those inklings of like, hey, I have to figure this out, I'm anxious about it. Even just starting the conversation there and not waiting till you feel very alone and you're like resentful and you're like, why aren't you helping me deal with this? And your partner's over there like, I didn't even know you're dealing with something.
Yeah.
So I think we need to allow things to be known and not just let them stew in our head.
Want to allow the opportunity for them to show up for you.
Yes.
Because we're not mind readers as much as we'd like to think. And I mean, I think I'm a mind reader, but
I'm pretty good at it.
pretty good. No, but it's like allowing that vulnerability, then that breeds more trust and intimacy in your relationships.
Well, and I didn't realize that my inability to be open and vulnerable, it made Cody want to shut off that part of himself to me. He was like, I don't want you to see me as weak. I don't want you to see me like I don't got it or like to worry. So he started doing the exact same thing back to
Really
me.
mirroring you.
And we were just kind of like distancing from each other. I'm like, wait a minute, no, I want a soft, loving, vulnerable relationship. And so I had to do work to tap into that and to allow more of that vulnerability. Allow him to see me cry, allow him to see me anxious or worried and not judge myself for being in that state. Just kind of a mind game.
What? And I feel like the longer, I actually really enjoy our relationship more now. Like obviously like the longer we've been married, because of it's like the level of trust that you've built over that time, like sex is better, like that intimacy is better because you like, and even I feel like we are so busy throughout the week, sometimes we don't have time to talk about things, but it's like I trust that like that level of trust and knowing is really comfortable for me. Like I really enjoy that feeling of like we're good, like everything, we're on the same team, even though we don't have the time every single day to tap into each other. It's like I love that feeling of just like this is our home, like that we've created.
Well, my mind is so analytical where I feel like sometimes I have to have some proof in my pocket that I can turn to. Like you're saying, like this is objectively true. Like we've been married for 12 years. Objectively, he wants to be here. We're going to be a thing. It's almost like tackling those thoughts of insecurity or thoughts of worthlessness and like being able to look at your relationship and look at the positive facts that are there. Or like, I saw something on Instagram recently and it was about, it was John Deloney. Like I love his stuff, but he was just talking about was it Jay Shetty? I don't know. It was one of those guys, but they were just saying about like, instead of looking at ways that people let you down, look at ways that they loved you. And then you'll start seeing more and more of those of like, oh, he, thought of me at the store and bought me a little snack I like. Oh, wow, he loves me. Look at that. Or, oh, he's holding my hand. He loves me. It's like reaffirming those like positive actions instead of mentally being like, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Wow, he must not be thinking of me. It's like, it's silly how that little shift can make a big difference so that you can view things more like positively.
When I think even just, oh, go ahead, Joanne.
No, that's okay.
Well, I was just thinking like even the difference between long-term relationships, being like you have a lot of that like new relationship energy, right? So I think it's like intimacy evolves and it shifts, but I think a lot of that stuff that happens at the beginning is really exciting and you can kind of see, it's like we forget what it's like at the beginning because that like you're like even just like remembering how you fell in love, how you felt about each other, it's like that kind of carries on long term.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, like the love languages too, is having to remember that they have a different language than you do.
100%.
Like, my partner is very much words of affirmation, and that actually makes me very uncomfortable.
Because you weren't raised with a lot of words of affirmation.
Exactly. And so he's constantly trying to tell me, and I'm so stubborn. We were literally having a conversation about this the other day. Because for me, it's like, I have to see it to believe it. And he's like, I need to hear it to believe it. Or, and so I'm like, well, like, we're very kind of opposite that way. It's similar, but it's like, I tell him, I hear what you say, but I need to see, like, you have to show me, and then I believe things, because I don't believe what anyone says.
Well, it's when you're raised with someone that says one thing, does another. It's like, I got to see both together.
100%. And he was raised, I mean, he was raised by a single mom. Not that she didn't treat him well, but he didn't get a lot of praise.
She didn't have time for that.
Yeah. Very busy. Or just his experience with school, being a Latino male and trying to go to med school. He just felt like he never got positive affirmations.
Like that feedback.
So it's very important to him, but he loves to give it. And so for me, I'm so stubborn that it's like, I have to tell myself, he's trying to love me in the way that he feels comfortable. And so for me, it's like, I have to take that and also make an effort to give that back to him too. I'm very much an acts of service. But, you know, I have to find ways to tell him, because I tell him I don't give compliments often, but if I give you one, it's legit.
I mean it.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I know. They come like the blue moon. But it's like, but I really do mean it.
That's so funny.
But we started this thing where he'll leave me a little sticky note, like just like a little message in the morning, and then I'm like, okay, I'll write it back, you know. So it's become a little thing. Like if I prep his lunch, I'll leave him a note, and he keeps them all. So I'm like, oh man, like he really loves it. But it puts it into perspective. It's like, just because it's uncomfortable for me doesn't mean I can't make the effort to try.
Yeah.
Because I do care about him, I do love him, and I can get better at expressing it at my own pace, of course.
Well, it doesn't mean it's going to feel awkward forever, too.
Yeah,
I think I love challenges that put me out of my comfort zone, and even something as simple as that. It's like, all right, I'm up to this challenge. Let's keep doing it till it feels natural and fluid and like not awkward.
Yeah, and he's told me straight up, he's like, you're not used to being with someone like me. I was like, no, I'm not. I love it, but just give me time to let me adjust to where this is a new normal, because I'm not used to praises. I was not raised in a house where we gave compliments. If anything, we tore each other down. We would tease each other, make fun of each other with my siblings.
Poke at each other.
Yeah. So it's like, 33 years of that, and now I have someone that's like giving me constant praise. It's like, I feel so like, okay, once is enough.
I was at probably like year 5 in my marriage, and I was at this point where I felt depleted. We were going hard at work and with kids and life. It was just like we were in the thick of it. And there was one point where Cody was like, you don't love me. Like, you don't do anything to show your love for me. Like, you don't love me. And I'm like, I serve you. I clean your house. I cook your food. I take care of your children. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, but that's for you and the kids. Like, that's not for me. I'm like, bro, you need to change your mindset, because my love language is acts of service. I'm like, here I am feeling like I'm outputting all of this effort, and he's feeling so loved and appreciative of it. In reality, he's like, there's nothing in my cup. And so I was like, okay, I need to switch that. I need to throw in his love languages, like words of affirmation, like you're saying. Physical touch is huge. And I had to like lean into that. Even though I felt like I was doing the most and trying to hold it down at home and with the kids, my spouse was still left like, do you actually love me? I'm like, I don't want my spouse to question. But it was a simple shift of like, oh, I'm giving him love the way I want it. And he was over here giving me words of affirmation and trying to be physical. And I'm like, I just want freaking help. So we had to have a conversation. We read the book even, and I feel like it helped kind of itemize what our needs are and what we're doing, because we both felt like we were giving a lot of love, but in reality, we both were left wanting too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to really ask myself, I was like, I want to be a person that can, kind of confirm that love verbally, so I took it as like, okay, challenge accepted. I can improve in this area, because obviously it's a weakness for me. I'm not going to get offended and personalize it. Like, this is why I'm like this, but I have the ability to change it moving forward.
Love that. Do you feel like it's helped with your kid too?
Oh, for sure. If anything, my daughter, she's 8 years old, and she's in this phase where she's getting very emotional. I read, I guess at this age they develop more androgens, so it's just like the hormone production is starting. But she didn't know how to verbalize it. It would just be like a growl or like a hiss. She makes weird animal noises.
A cat.
But I'm like, what is wrong? And she's just like, or she'll like scratch at me. But I realized words are important. We have to name this. How are you feeling? what's wrong.
Like helping your kids like figure it out.
But I also realized too is like, okay, I'm constantly asking her and trying to help her like name it, but am I also giving her praises or complimenting her, like anything uplifting? And so I realized with her is to help with these mood shifts is like, if I ask her to do something and she's grouchy about it, I thank her. Oh, thank you so much for doing that. Like, thank you for helping me. I appreciate you. You know, just little things like, oh, you're so helpful.
Yeah.
And her mood would just shift. Like all of a sudden she gets this little smile. Like, oh yeah, I am. You know, I am helpful.
I am mom's little helper. This is
big helper today.
You know, and so it just shifted. And now she's more verbal about what's wrong with her. I'm feeling this. I'm spending time with my niece. She's like, I'm getting jealous. I'm like, okay, well, come here. I'll cuddle you too. You know, like you want praise? Girl, name it. I will help you. But if you don't say it or express it, you know, I can't read your mind.
Yeah.
So,
one, it's like that communication and trust that you're building, and that's why I think we want to talk about intimacy, not just in our sexual relationships, but our family relationships, because I think having that level of communication and trust with your mother is like a way to build good intimacy.
Yeah, it's a ripple
I had
effect.
My daughter, my youngest, she's been frustrating me. She's 4, almost 5, but she wants me to do certain things for her, which
she wants you to baby her.
She wants me to baby her, but there's like things where I'm like, you should be able to dress yourself. Like there are little things like, come on, we can do this. And so in the moment it triggers me. I'm just like, okay, fine. Like I'll do this. And it's like, I can tell I have this like rage because I'm like, you should be able to do this. But the other day, instead of like getting frustrated by it, I was like, okay, I had to depersonalize the situation. I literally, in my head, I was like, what advice would you give to someone and who is, and this is a silly example, but like she was having like anxiety about going to the summer camp, and I wasn't necessarily frustrated by that, but I don't have social anxiety like her, so it was, I'm like just calm down, but I'm like, that's not helpful to someone with anxiety. Like someone just telling you to
get
calm
over
down
it
is like not actually helpful information. So I was like, okay, Jude, I was like, what would I tell someone who was having anxiety how to treat it? It's like, okay, like let's shake our body. Let's try and shake our body a little bit. Let's take a few deep breaths. And she wasn't doing it. And she was like, it didn't really help. But it was funny because like later, and she's like, you know, Mom, when I get mad at my friends, sometimes when I'm being mean, I just take a big breath and I say, I'm not a mean girl. And then I feel better. And I'm like, okay. Like, so I'm like, it's clicking, even though in the moment, not listening, didn't. But it was like when we talked at night later in the night when things were calm, when that like anxiety wasn't there, it was like, and there was another instance where later, I think I asked her, I'm like, how can I be a better mom? And she was like, oh, nigger, I love you, Mom. You're a great mom. And I'm like, well, you could be a better daughter by getting dressed by yourself in the morning or like trying to get your clothes on by yourself. And she's like, okay. And then the next morning when I was getting her dressed, she was like, no, let me do it. And I was like, oh, okay, here you go. Because normally it's a fight. And it was like, oh, if I communicate these needs when it's not elevated, we're not feeling frustrated, we're not rushing out the door. Like she does consume this information. It's just like how we communicate
and
to
how
each
you
other.
deliver it so she can hear it.
But then it's like she trusts me because I was able to say it in a space that was like I was holding her, we were snuggling, getting ready for bed, and then in the morning she wanted to be that independent little girl. Like, yeah, let me do this myself. And it was like, oh, this is easier.
the power of communicating.
Yeah.
Huge. Well, and I think as a parent, it's like, I don't think we give enough credit to the fact that as we're raising kids, like we are triggered constantly, whether it's stuff you didn't have as a parent and you're giving it to them and they're ungrateful and you're like, what the heck, this is more than I had. It's like, or they're acting in a way that you were never allowed to act like, and you're like, what the heck is wrong with you? I just want to like leave. Like, this is crazy. I just feel like it's really important to know yourself enough and to know kind of and remember problems you had as a kid or lacks that you had, so then you can correct them and parent them. But furthermore, I think it's really important to know those little triggers so you don't project and you don't like unleash those negative feelings on an innocent child that's like, hey, Mom, you do this all the time. Why are you so mad?
Oh, for sure.
But I feel like
confused.
I feel like being a parent, it's a lot of like pause and think and then come back instead of just reacting, especially if you don't want just reactive kids. Like, I'm just mad.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but why are you mad?
And what would be actually helpful to a person who's learning this? I think I have to like step outside of my brain. It's like, what tools would be helpful if you never knew how to do this? And it was like, and then it was easier for me. It was like once I took out my own judgment of how I thought she should be acting or what level she should be at, it was like, what would you tell someone who was struggling with this? It was like, oh, okay, I would tell them this or whatever.
And I think that's awesome, because even with your partner, you could do that same kind of approach.
Like depersonalize the action, even of like, oh, well, he didn't take out the trash probably because he wasn't thinking about me or whatever it is. Like 100%. Your frustrations of like, oh, this has nothing to do with me, actually.
Like maybe he was really busy and rushed out the door and just completely didn't even think about it.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of the time our minds want to play that victimization game of like, it's their fault, like they're why I'm mad, instead of like, hold on, I can now approach my spouse and be like, hey, when you forget to take out the trash when you promised, it makes me feel like you're not prioritizing our family. It makes me feel disrespected because then I have to cover for you. And it's consistent. You know, I think it's like being able to be mature enough and in tune enough to have that kind of productive conversation of like, hey, I got feelings when you didn't do what you were going to say. I don't think it's actually linked to this task. It makes me feel X, Y, and Z.
Whether it's valid or not.
Exactly. And then give them a chance to say, I'm so sorry, I didn't know it made you feel like that. I promise I'm going to put a reminder on my phone now so I don't forget, or whatever they want to do.
And I think for me, learning to do that, because naturally if you're upset or triggered or anything, you want to just say it. But I feel like how you say it makes a huge difference.
100.
And I feel like I'm constantly having to remind my dad and my stepmom about this because I'm constantly in the middle of their issues. But it's like you should be able to express what bothered you, but not to pass judgment in the sense of like, let's say, oh, we forgot to throw out the garbage. Instead of saying, you're so lazy, you always forget to do this. No. Hey, I know you forgot to throw out the trash, but like you said, when you forget, it makes me feel like you're not considering me, you know? So it's like, focus on the problem and then how to get to the solution.
Love that.
Instead of like, you're this, it's like, that's actually not going to be a productive conversation, because then you're going to offend each other, then you're mad, and then you're blowing up and you got nowhere.
Well, then you also create this idea of your partner that is inferior.
They're a villain.
They are the villain. They're not capable. And I think that was one thing too, is like seeing my partner as an equal, because I think sometimes like when you're in a relationship for a long time, it can be like, well, you always do this, you forget, you start to generalize some of their actions, which like is totally unfair. And so I
can't stand that.
I have to remind myself like, no, my partner is fully capable, and like we are the same. Like we are the same.
And we both make mistakes or forget things sometimes.
So I feel like that's a big part of, I think, even keeping the respect and love for your partner too, because I think it's hard to be intimate with a person you don't respect.
Well, and on the a different kind of stem of intimacy, I think it's really important to know what that looks like for you. What makes you feel comforted? What makes you feel heard? What makes you feel loved? What puts you in the mood? If you don't know, how is your partner going to know?
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've had to realize of like, things I don't know about myself, I can't expect other people to know about me. And even if they're giving me the right things that I want, if I don't view it as that, then it's going to like not be received. It's going to fall on deaf ears, if that makes sense. So I think it really is important to not rely on your partner to fuel your intimacy or your needs, but also to know what it's going to take and allow them to rise to that occasion and give that to you, or figure out their own method of kind of eliciting that intimacy, closeness.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that your partner, I mean, speaking from a women's perspective, they want to know what you like. Yeah. They want to be told so that they can do that. So, and I know my partners told me all the time, well, tell me what you like. And sometimes I feel kind of awkward, like, oh, I want you to do this and this. But it's like, don't expect them to read your mind. Like, it's okay. And like you said, if you don't know, how are you supposed to help them?
Well, and say you tell them and they laugh at you or they make you feel like an idiot. It's like, that's not going to fly. It's almost like, let it be a test even. I'm like, hey, if I tell my spouse I want X, Y, and Z, is he going to figure out how to like own that position, make that happen? Or is he going to make me feel stupid and then we have a different problem? Like there's a lack of respect or he's not taking it seriously. And then that's a whole different conversation. But I feel like, what's it going to hurt by saying, oh, I like X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. Like for me, it was like, I like my feet played with. I do. You could... You can laugh.
I love
like,
that.
I actually
love that.
like it. And he was just like, okay, you're into that. All right. He tried it. I loved it. I was like, yes.
You're like, this is what I've been asking for.
Well, and I think
That's
having
really
a partner who is like open, willing, and like game to like try and navigate what that looks like, I think is really important when you are choosing a partner, whether you're into it or not, but it's like without the judgment and the just like openness to try and explore what that looks like for you.
Well, and you might like what your partner says they like. You're like, wow, I never even considered I was a foot person. And now I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually really cool. I'm into it. I think it's like being open to gift your spouse what they're wanting or like explore that space, but them also returning that favor too. And the more you're willing to do it, the more they're willing to explore.
And I think that's where vulnerability comes into, to be able to express like, what do you like, and to feel like you have that safe space.
Match my freak.
Freak. That is the goal. Can they match your freak?
And I think that is important to establish early on in a relationship of like, do we vibe on that level? Because the physical level is really important. And it's like establishing like, are they adventurous or are they very conservative? And I like that and it makes me feel comfortable. It's like, are they literally matching your freak? I think that's actually a very important thing to know, because then you go years down the road and you get bored and they're not into anything else. It's like, okay, this doesn't match then. But
well, and I think sexual energy can evolve and it can change, but I think it is important to have a solid base of what that feels like initially. Like that new relationship should feel exciting. Like it should feel good and it should be exciting. It shouldn't be like, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe have you guys ever been in situations where it did not feel like it really matched?
Well, almost, I think the thing I thought of as you were talking, it's almost like ways that we withhold. And I think we all use sex some in similar ways, some in very different ways. It's like, are you trying to control their joy by inhibiting their access to you? It's like, what way are you using your pussy power? If I don't know how else to say it. It's like, are you allowing it to be a mutual exchange, or is it like, hey, you got to earn this? It's like being real with how you're withholding and not. Because I think when I was a bitter bee and resentful, it was like I was totally withholding.
Yeah,
this is the one thing I got control over you, and I'm going to withhold until you're begging, and then I'll give you permission, and then it made me feel in control.
Yeah,
but it really didn't allow spontaneity. It didn't allow him to like.
Wasn't
give me access. It wasn't free flowing. It was really just like a lose-lose for both of us. But sorry,
unless
so that's
like
what I thought
that
of.
Sort of thing.
Yes, which that can be some people's thing.
Which is different though, because it's like something you're both like actively participating in versus like one person controlling. Yeah.
Well, and I thought of, you know how like they do experiments on mice or whatever, like say a sugar experiment with a mouse. Like if they know where to go to get that little sugar hit, they're going to keep coming back for it. And so for me, when I'm say not in the mood, but he is, it's like I have to trust like, Ariana, you really like this. Like you actually love this and you would go to it if you're feeling in a better mood or whatever. So give it a shot. Like you might really like that sugar hit right now. And so once it starts and things finish, I'm like, gosh, I really did like that. Like I needed that. Why was I trying to withhold from myself like joy or energy or whatever, pleasure? And I realized when I can lean into the fact that I trust my spouse, I know he's not going to make me do anything that's bizarre, uncomfortable. Like, I know I'm going to like this at the end of it. And 9 times out of 10, I'm like, I'm glad we had that experience. Like, thank you for pursuing me and like pushing it forward. Yeah. Like that feels really good.
And I feel like that is one thing I'm really, really grateful with my partner for, is like his eagerness to keep that, obviously maybe hormones or like his eagerness to keep that relationship intact, because I think sex is a really, as I've grown older, it's like this is a way that we are able to connect. Like it's really important for the health of our marriage. And I think the older I get, the more I realize like, oh, I need this on a semi-regular basis. Like this actually,
even just for cortisol levels, like you need it.
I feel less stressed. I feel less frustrated. I feel happier. Like it is it's like I'm the same way in the sense of like forgetting that this is something that's very important to your health. And the more I lean into like, this makes you feel happy. You like everyone more when you do this. It's like, oh, and then it's easier for me then to also engage more.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, but also seen as like his role sometimes where I'm like, what if I'm not in the mood? Like, don't get offended. But like you play a very important role in this marriage. Like this is very important to the health of our marriage is that you are so eager. So
thank you for pursuing me today, but I need you to stop because it ain't a thing. But thank you. Thank you for doing it every other day.
This is important. But you know, I think it is kind of a balance, you know?
For sure. What about personal? How do you guys stay feeling yourself, or like what puts you in the mood of like, I know I'm sexy, I'm in my sensual energy? Like what kind of things kind of charge that for you guys?
And I think that plays a big role in people's, like, I think even you wanting to be sexual. I do like to, like, get ready every day, like, do my hair, makeup. Not that I'm, like, full whatever, but I think it is important to me to even just, like, put an outfit together because it makes me feel...
it just sounds so simple, but you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like I try and take care of myself, and it was... and sometimes I forget that my husband is sexually attracted to me.
What?
But no,
explain that example, the show.
Oh, the show, yeah. So I was like watching this show, and my husband's like, "Oh, this woman's so beautiful," and I was like, "Yeah, she's so beautiful." Like it was, undeniable. He's like, "Oh, she kind of looks like you," and I'm like, "Whatever, dude." Like,
You
okay,
instantly wanted to resist
whatever.
it.
But then I was thinking, I'm like, wait, he is like sexually attracted to me. Like he actually is attracted to me. It was funny because obviously I know that on some level.
He views me like he views that girl. Like I'm viewing that
like
girl.
there is like a level of like sexual attraction that is headed my way, and I think when you're in a relationship for so long, like you kind of forget. But it's like, no, I'm a beautiful person, and I don't think I'm an ugly person. But I think it was just like this small acknowledgement of like, no, you take good care of yourself. You are pretty. Your husband wants to have sex with you, like. And I think when you're married, it's like I don't look at other men. It's not something that I feel like I'm, seeing. I don't flirt when people flirt with me. It's like I don't even notice. So it was just like a funny reminder of like, why don't you actually receive the compliments this man gives you? Like you don't allow yourself to believe it. Like I take pretty good care of myself. Like you are good looking. It was just like a funny reminder of like, oh wow, I guess I am beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how long have you guys been together?
Married 11 years. We dated for 2. So
right. So I'm saying even after that long, your mind is still looking for proof that he doesn't view me that way, or I'm not sexy. I'm not what I've been trying to believe this whole time. Yeah. It's like fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. But it's like having those facts. It's like, I know that my husband's sexually attracted to me. He tries to have sex with me every single day. So why is this a question, right? For you, right? Yeah. But it's just silly, like the games that we play mentally to protect ourselves from getting disappointed or let down. I love that example. I think that's cute.
But I also think, so on to your question, one, taking care of myself, that makes me, I think, feel myself. I think even like playing our little sports that we play, like soccer, softball, he likes seeing me be athletic because I think it reminds him of me when we met, right? Like,
well, and you're happy when you're physical and
I'm
athletic.
happy when I'm playing sports. So I feel like that's a way that I feel like I connect to me. Like it feels like something that is just mine. Not that I feel sexy when I'm playing sports, but I think that's like when I'm doing things that make me feel like that are just for me, I'm feeling myself more. I feel more confident. And
more
I think
alive.
even like when you feel strong as a woman, when you're like lifting weights, it's like you feel more empowered in that way. So 100%. I think like exercise, that kind of thing, like makes me kind of feel myself more.
I love that. Totally agree.
What about you, Joanne?
Yeah. Exercising is definitely one thing. Although, like I said, I'm in this funk because I have a lot of estrogen and my tummy is like constantly bloated. But after I work out, because we work out together, and I feel like that kind of helps me feel myself when I see myself in the mirror, and I'm like, you know what, I am strong, I am buff, like
his ass is fat.
That definitely helps. But I think too, because he likes to listen to music, lots of rap music, which I was very surprised when I met him.
You would never guess, guys.
You would never guess. But it sounds silly, but sometimes if I'm in a good mood, I'll just like twerk randomly, and he like loves it.
That is so funny.
But
That's
I'm
cute.
like, because he's like, dang, you're actually pretty good at it. And it's like, I am, huh? Like, I can shake it.
He allows you to own it.
Yeah, and I think it's just little things like that where I'm like, I'm being silly, but I feel sexy at the same time, like I can move these hips, just things like that. But getting ready too, I feel like when we have consistent date nights where I can get ready and not look homeless, because I feel like I'm in work clothes, gym clothes, pajamas, like that's it. So if I can get in civilian clothes and like do my hair, wear makeup, try to look cute, I also have like body dysmorphia. So sometimes I'm like, I don't like what I'm wearing. But on a good day where I feel like I do like my outfit, it's like, yes, I feel like when you're well put together, it makes a huge difference. And actually he was telling me this quote. There's a athlete that he told me about, and I can't remember the name, Deion Sanders. Mm-hmm. But I guess he heard it when he was a kid. When you look good, you feel good, you perform good, and then you win.
100%.
So, I mean, he's always dressing very well, you know, and he says, like, yeah, when I wear all my clothes and my shoes, you know, I feel good, I perform better, and then I win. So I was like, you know, that's true. And I feel like a lot of times we get comfortable in a sense. It's like, he's already with me, whatever, I don't have to wear makeup, I don't have to do my hair. Just like, no, when you put in that time and effort to look good, you do feel good, and then you are in a better mood, you do perform better, and you win, whatever that may mean to you. But
you score.
I feel
it's
like
your own foreplay.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
So I was like, I have to remember, is like, I need to put that consistent effort in, because it gets hard to maintain those date nights with work, school.
Yeah.
Kids.
We were in sports. Yeah, Kendall was in soccer, I was in soccer, he was in basketball. So it's like we didn't have time. And I feel like I got used to just like throwing my hair up and just looking homeless. But it's like, no, I need to be attracted to myself too.
And I think that's the thing, I think, is like, it's like being attracted to yourself, not necessarily like for him, which that feels nice, right? Like doing that for someone else, but it is like mostly for me, like, so I feel like a woman.
Yes.
Well, and I think I'm huge on that. I've always been a huge advocate of like being ready for opportunities that present themselves. And even if you're going to the grocery store, I'm like, I don't want pajama pants on. What if I see someone that's my next connection and I'm supposed to meet them and I look crazy? You know, I want to be able to be trusted and taken seriously. So for me, appearance is a big deal. And I think that's one less thing I even have to worry about. It's like, I already know I'm put together. I knew it before I walked out the door, so I don't even have to wonder. And it makes me not be anxious about my look, and I can focus on what's at hand, and then I can win, right?
Yeah.
I love that quote. I think that's fantastic.
It reminds me of that Iron Man shirt I had that was like...
No, you guys, I have to explain this. So one day, it was Saturday morning, I went over to Brenna's house really early, and I can't remember why. I was just visiting or asking you about
dropping
something.
off my dog, probably.
Brenna answers the door, and her hair is wild. I don't even know how you make it look like that. And then she had this oversized Iron Man t-shirt that I know is my older brother's. So I'm like, I don't even know how she obtained this shirt. It had holes in it. It was faded. It was ratty, but she chose to wear
like
this.
A 2X, like definitely not my size.
I was like, Brenna, like kudos to you that you can wear that and still feel like you're effable. Like, this is fantastic. I would not be able to feel the same way. But obviously I have more of a hang up with look and how I'm like, I don't own a shirt like that. I don't know how to get a shirt like that, but good for you that you can do it.
Well, the reason I have that shirt, I think it was some laundry that I had taken home at some point, and he was visiting, so that's why the shirt like stayed at my
But you
house.
chose to wear it.
But it was a perfect pajama shirt.
Yeah.
But I'm very comfortable in my skin. Like, I feel like I'm like... I'm very comfortable. So I think if I'm going, I want to comfort. If I'm going out, comfort is number one. Even if I'm dressing up, I'm like, do these shoes hurt my feet if I have to walk a mile? Then I'm not wearing them, because I will be that girl that has barefoot in the club, which I don't want to be that girl. So like, comfort is very important to me, but that's also when I feel confident too. So it's like, having a nice outfit isn't necessarily like a sexy outfit. It's an outfit that I feel like cool in.
Like yourself in.
Like myself. So I think it's important for me to feel me, what that looks like to me, not necessarily for... And I think actually my husband is attracted to my level of comfort of myself.
Your confidence.
So he is attracted to my level of confidence. And so the Iron Man shirt doesn't necessarily bother him. I did get rid of that. After a while, I got rid of the Iron Man shirt. But I think he is attracted to me because I have that level of confidence in myself. So sometimes he'll see me like, I can't believe you're wearing that. But I know there's this level of like, dude, I can't, good for her. Like, she doesn't care.
100%. And I respect that about Brenna. I feel like she has always been more secure in her body than I have been. And I've had to work really hard to like obtain that feeling. But I think something that maybe we don't acknowledge a lot is like you kind of touched on a little bit, when Gavin sees you in your element, he's like, he loves that. Like, he loves you feeling yourself and like doing what you like. It's like in the same wavelength. I feel like I really love watching Cody work. It's really weird. He's really good at what he does. He's very methodical, and he knows how to do things like within construction that I would not even know where to start. And I really respect that, like his wealth of knowledge. And so it's funny, but like sometimes tagging along or like just watching him do a project, I'm like, gosh, like, you're smart. It makes me like want to appreciate him and his skills and his intelligence. And even this weekend, we're fixing something in Lodi on Saturday, and he was like, oh, I'm sorry that you have to be here and like watch me do this. I'm like, no, I love it. Like, I love you and your element, and I find it so attractive. And so I feel like it's also like creating opportunities where your spouse can feel honored and feel attracted and attractive, and to feel like you're like just obsessed over them.
Well,
It's like, that's a great feeling.
I think it's like, because you were attracted to them as an individual. And I think when you're married, you become, or even partner for a long time, it's like you start to rub off on each other. You kind of become a unit, right? But I think it's like keeping that level of independence is pretty important. Whether it is just like, yeah, go hang out with your friends. Like, I like seeing you hang out with friends. I like seeing you be social. I think it's like recognize what that is for each person.
Yeah. And this sounds silly, but we were on vacation in Hawaii, and Cody kept looking at me, and I was like, I kept catching his eye. I'm like, oh, what? Like, what's up? And he's like, I'm just looking at you. You're beautiful. I just love looking at you. And I'm like Joanne, to where I was like, okay, like, what are you going to ask for? Like, what do you want? I anticipated like, and what? Yes, like you're trying to do something. And I had to like slap my own hand to be like, no, like, let him praise you. Let him adore you. Like, you deserve being adored and loved and appreciated. And why am I withholding that feeling from myself? And why am I not doing that more to him? Like, obviously it feels really good when you can accept it. And it's like, why am I not also like offering that to him and making him feel admired and loved and appreciated? So it was a weird moment, because I kept like, I literally said what like 20 times that week. But it was a good reminder of like, Ariana, we need to lean into this and allow yourself to receive just admiration, and know that it's like, it's warranted and it's okay. And I need to be able to give that back. But anyways, small
That's
example.
Cute. That's cute.
We're cute.
Well, any other thoughts?
Covers it.
I think we covered
I think
it.
we did.
I think so.
I think
that was a lot.
Yeah.
With kids, self, partner. Like, I feel like
I think it boils down to communication's important. Trusting your partner is important. Communication breeds trust. And I think also feeling yourself is really important, or being able to love yourself so you can share that.
yeah.
I mean, that's what I got from this.
Because don't they say like people can only love others to the extent that they love themselves?
100%.
So love yourself first.
And be in tune enough to realize like where your hangups are.
Yeah.
Like, where's my resistance? You know, I feel like we have to look, because we all have different resistance, whether it's to compliments or physicality or even just words of affirmation. And it's like, where did this come from? How do I adjust that? Because I don't want to keep carrying that resistance.
How do I like being loved?
Yeah.
I think we're going to talk about it. We didn't, but the sexual blueprint, I forget her name, but it's really interesting. Even just like it's like love language for your sexuality. I encourage everyone to take that little quiz, because it's very
Super cool.
It's actually really interesting. Just even like how your sexuality is wired, and I think it's like ever evolving. So.
Well, so what this blueprint is, the sexual blueprint, it basically, you have to answer a bunch of questions, and then it gives you these results, almost like the love language quiz. Like, you answer all these questions and it tells you your top love languages. And I just found it very intriguing and interesting, because they have different options like kinky or energetic or do you remember? Sexual or like actual physical intercourse, like different turn-ons for you. And my result, I was like, a mixture of things, but very high, like, energy. And at first I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. But then when I realized, I'm like, no, I'm all about the energy exchange. I like that anticipation. I like that feeling of like connection and the give and the take. It's like the energy part is what actually fuels me and feeds me. And it was just interesting that the blueprint gave a name to it, and it totally resonated with the description kind of they had in there.
And it's really, really thorough. The results are very thorough. So it kind of goes, because I was kinky, which I was like, what? But after reading the results, I'm like, I guess. But after reading the results, I was like, okay, it's like this playfulness, like this communication, like, dirty talk or whatever. But
it's kinky too, girl. Don't worry about it.
But it wasn't necessarily just like toys, whips, and, like you think kinky. It was just like more of like what that looks like.
And what that actually means.
Yes. And so I thought it was really informative. But I think it's like the more you understand your own sexuality, how you like to receive that pleasure too, and how your partner likes to, it's like then you can speak the same language.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool if you both could take it, your partner and you. I feel like I had Cody take it too, and it's interesting to like compare the results and like where we meet.
All right. Well, cool, guys. Good girl talk.
Yes. Thanks for listening.
Subscribe.
Click the link and subscribe.
Thank you for joining us on another enlightening episode of the Awaken Your Ego podcast. We hope our discussions have inspired you to explore new dimensions of health and wellness.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower individuals on their path to optimal well-being.
Stay tuned for more insightful conversations, and until next time, may you continue to awaken your ego and embrace the extraordinary potential within.
Take care, be well, and remember, your journey matters.